What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 77 of the Book Binge, where this week we are reviewing yet another classic. Sorry to bombard you with a lot of these, but I need to get through a lot of the classics that I've read over the past year and a half, and I also haven't been able to read a lot of non-classic books as of recent, so this is just kind of what I'm reviewing for the moment. This week is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and this week's review is actually going to be a bit differently structured than all of my normal reviews. Like most of my reviews, especially the ones this year up to this point, have been the good, the bad, the ugly, and the recommendation. This one is going to be a bit different, as you will see as we go through the video. Overall, I'm really excited to be able to talk about this book because in some weird ways, I was initially mixed on this book when I first started reading it, but then I came around. And that's more or less how this video is going to be structured. So let's just kind of go ahead and talk about it since I don't really have that much else to say as an introduction. We're starting off not as normal with the good this week. Instead, we are starting off with the bad. This book, for me, when I started reading it, started off very slow and incredibly boring. I was not having an enjoyable time with it, particularly in the first volume. Characters were simultaneously really easy, but also really different to differentiate depending on which ones they were. There were some characters that were really easy to differentiate, but there were some that were like not at all. Most of these were in particular to the daughters slash sisters of the book. There are like four of them, but they could have just as easily been two because they are essentially just two sisters, and then there's the other two that just kind of exist and don't really do anything. So because of that, certain names just kind of blend together. There's so many females in this book that it's hard to really differentiate who the characters are and why it matters for the majority of the early of the book, at least for me. I would also say that the adult characters were somewhat unique since they differentiated from, say, the children, for example, or the daughters, I would say, because they're not children necessarily. They're still adults. A couple of them are anyway. But I think most of the non daughters slash sisters characters were very underutilized for the most part. As such, none of the things going on in the story or the plot, since there really isn't much story or the plot, really mattered to me. This book is pretty much all focused on the characters and the character arcs, essentially. None of the social status complaints of the book mattered. None of the love searching mattered amongst the characters. Even the prose didn't really work for me. But then we hit the switch up. In the middle of volume 2, something just changed. I don't actually know exactly why things changed or when for sure it was. I just know that sometime in volume 2, suddenly something changed in my experience and I realized I was no longer hating the book. For the first half of it or so, I would say I was on and off considering maybe DNFing it, even though I don't really like to DNF books, so I just decided to continue. But then all of a sudden, one morning I was reading the book and it was like, wait, I'm not hating the book anymore. When did this happen? All of a sudden, I was loving it. Although admittedly, I never warmed too much up to the prose beyond the dialogue, I was overall enjoying everything else about the book. Like I said, all of a sudden. Here we get into the great of Pride and Prejudice. Just as I mentioned, as the dialogue or hinted at, the dialogue is brilliant. The dynamics between characters is amazing. The way the social context of the time, thanks for the explanations and of that alley, which made it a little bit easier to get into, affects the way that people see other people and see each other and see the world. Like the way the social context of the time affects this is amazing to experience as well. The growth of the main couple of characters was wonderful. This especially was one of my favorite parts. Like the last several chapters of this book was enough to flip my like 2-star experience of reading Pride and Prejudice for the first half of the book to an easy 5-star by the end. Like I didn't even need to consider whether it'd be 5 or 4-star. Like it was just 5-star. That kind of turnaround is so rare of a thing, but that's what happened for me. The recommendation of this book is a little bit different because of that. I don't think everybody's going to click with Austen genuinely. Like, as very clearly obvious, I did not click with Austen at first. I know plenty of people as well, even beyond this, who had to read multiple Austen books or even read a couple of her books multiple times before she clicked. It's one of those authors that's like, either you're going to really enjoy it at first or you're really not going to until all of a sudden you are. That's more or less what my experience was, and I think that this might be the case for the majority of people, generally speaking. The recommendation is to give Austen a chance at least. Because if Austen clicks for you, there is just something so entrancing and lovely about this book, specifically since it's the one that I've read, but also what I've heard about all of her other books, like, say, Persuasion as well, it's just so entrancing and lovely if you have read them and they click and work for you. Definitely give this book a shot if you haven't. If it's not clicking with you, don't be afraid to finish it, because maybe there will come a point near the end of it where all of a sudden it works. If you don't like it, I would honestly still say give another Austen book a chance, because I heard that it's pretty much the same story with all of her books. I would also love to reread Pride and Prejudice sometime relatively soonish, just because of the way that that turnaround affected me so much. I really disliked the beginning of the book at first because none of it mattered. By the time I got to the end of the book and all of a sudden I was absolutely loving it, it's like, okay, now I need to read the beginning of the book, because all of a sudden I understand why that material was actually good and why I was just stupid for not liking it before. So, that's generally my feelings. This review is really short. My apologies for that. I don't really have much more to say other than I didn't enjoy this book at first until all of a sudden I did, and now I love it. It's really, really that simple, all things told. Like, that is the review. Let me know if you have, as of recent, as I've been, diving into reviewing a bunch of classics recently, if you've been enjoying that, since I have not been able to, or have not wanted to review classics on the Book Binge up to this point. Now that I'm starting to do it, how do you feel about it? I'm going to be returning pretty soon to reviewing a few books that aren't quite classics for a little bit, since I've been able to read a bit more of those recently. But yeah, I'm excited to still be able to be reviewing all of these. I still have a few more of these to come out over the next several months, since I have plenty to catch up on in terms of the review. Yeah, thank you guys for watching this admittedly very short review. I love this book, even though I didn't at the start, and I think that that might be an experience for many other people as well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back again on Thursday with another special video related to this series up here. So if you're interested in checking that out, I hope you go ahead and check it out on Thursday when it comes out. Otherwise, I'll be back again in the next video. Thank you guys again for watching.